Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and today is a good day in Walrusburg, Polaris. Everybody is celebrating, everyone around me is celebrating, and you know what? I'm celebrating too, because I never have to play Ice PvP ever, ever again, because I'm free. I'm free. I want to wave this flag. Do you got an extra copy of that flag? I want to wave it with you. I want to sit here and be happy, dance with my penguin wife, because I never have to play Ice PvP ever again after today. And let me tell you, these 25 games were an agonizing experience, without a shadow of a doubt. And, team, it is finally over. I am so glad to be done with this school. There's another nerf on the horizon where my beloved Tamauchi will be getting banned. But I don't have to worry about that, because I'm done with Ice PvP. It is Jover. I am so happy to be done with this school. And yeah, these 25 games, they sure happened. They were sure games that happened. And as Greg would always say, you know, I'm checking myself into a mental asylum every time I get on this school. So yeah, these are the stats that I used for at least the tail end of these games. I switched up my setup multiple times throughout. I have 46 Pierce with the Clockwork Courser, so I would use this set for a little bit. I would have pretty good damage. I'm missing a little bit of res because I don't have Brace 5, but yeah, and then Pierce is perfect, except it rounds down because Wiz, and then I would use the Rock Mount. So this is what I used for the first little bit. I only had 13.4k health, which got me killed a couple of times, so that was fun. But as time went on, I decided to switch over to this set, which is what I just showed y'all. 46 Pierce, you know, it still rounds down to 45 because Wiz, but yeah, this, I'm just glad to be done with the school. And there's that. I used to use this deck, I think, or it was something in here. Oh yeah, this is the deck that I used to use. This is the side. So there's a little bit that's changed. Of course, I can't use Frostbite TC anymore because it got banned. Because Wiz, and Ice gets nerfed every update. So this is the deck that I think is the best. I did bite the bullet and decided to run Storm Accuracy, and I think it paid off a little bit. It helped me marginally, but not too much. So either way, it doesn't matter. But let's just go ahead and look at game 26. So I did want to briefly mention that the original games 26 and 27, I played them both out. I won one, I lost one, and the net elo change was it was -1, and I would have put them in, except that I lost the footage for game 27. So that was fun, but the guy forced a tie, so, you know, you didn't miss much. So, yeah, game 26 is one that you actually already saw. This was a video from a bit ago. I think it was the 5th of July, if I'm not mistaken. So, game 26 versus a balanced wizard, so what a start, right? And I won with 26 HP. Pretty nice for game 26. So the result was I won with 19.6 percentage points of my health left, a likely victory for myself for the Ice School, and I gained 11 elo from it. So this match had its own video. I'd recommend checking that out for a full analysis of the game. That being said, beating a balance is always a good feeling, because the amount of tools they have that just a big middle finger to Ice specifically makes it a one-sided matchup per my tier list that I posted on Tuesday. And props to Jacob for not being really weird and spamming Scales of Destiny, which, well, I'll explain what that does in a little bit, in case y'all didn't know. In game 27, I went against a Fire Wizard, and I was able to get the win with 3,268 HP remaining, which the result meant I won with 24.3% of my health left, which was a likely victory, falling into the likely margin for me as the Ice, and I gained 14 elo from it. So, In this game, I had to really stay on top of my bubbles, and I was able to do that fortunately, but this is where you start to see a bit of a constant when it comes to the fires I've been playing against though, and that is the spell Glacial Golem. This is, in my opinion, Fire's most busted card in the Ice and Storm matchups. As if they didn't school diff us enough, the devs gave him this spell for some strange and inexplicable reason after Rochambeau became a thing. You'll notice that it's a much bigger hindrance to Ice as opposed to Storm. Anytime a Fire uses this cheese card, it immediately throws off our whole plan and forces us to pivot to using Frostbite, which, while that is a good card, it pales in comparison to a Fire who uses Glacial Golem. This hyper-offensive school, for whatever reason, has been allowed to keep a spell that stops the two schools that have been consistently the worst for years dead in their tracks. If it wasn't for this card existing, Storm would, actually just roll them every single time, like they should. But as for the Ice matchup, the only time a Fire will ever use this is if they know they'll start losing badly if they don't, and keep an eye on the Fires you see throughout this video. If any school should not have a hidden shield, it is Fire. And I hope this card gets banned in the next patch, even though I'm pretty sure it won't, because right now, there are games where I am easily winning, and then they throw this spell out, do a rack for no reason, and grind my game plan to a screeching halt. The matchup already favors them enough. Why give Fire a card like this? Makes absolutely no sense at all. So in the last video, I started out with a pretty nice little win streak of 5, but not so much this time. In game 28, I went against another Fire, and I lost, and the guy had 1,329 HP, meaning the result was he won with 12.4% of his health left, a likely victory for the Fire Wizard here, and I lost 18 elo for it, so fun, you know? It's like you lose more than you gain in this system, which is just so weird. I don't know why they do that, but they do. So for this game, I went against my buddy Anthony Roseblade, and while my deck really worked for me in game 27, game 28 proved to be a very different story. Bubble control is everything in this matchup, and if you can't win the bubble war against a Fire, it's a good chance you just lose, and that's what happened in this match. I tend to bluff with my Storm pips when I'm not running my Storm accuracy setup to discourage Fires from spamming overtimes, but a lot of them tend to play he don't got it, and they just send overtimes anyway. So he used the Sun Serpent, which does absolutely mass split over 3 OTs, and from there it was just all downhill. I was able to fire back with a pretty good Tamauji, but I was not pulling any bubbles, so it wasn't as good as I needed it to be. I maintained my position that Dark Surge is one of the worst additions the PvP has ever seen, because it allows people to spam high pip hits and use combos they wouldn't be able to pull off without it. Combos that require a ton of setup, like Serpent into a Freet, would typically require you to get to max pips first before using it, and then making a 0 pip move while keeping up pressure. But because of Surge, people don't have to care about that anymore, and they can just lean on it to get them rank. And I mean, I do it myself when I'm on my Fire. But what I'm getting at is, OT Fire is no fun to fight when they have so much power concentrated in one spell. There are others, like Ifrit and Scion, are pretty strong, but the school is absolutely just nothing without Surge. I would like to say props to Roseblade for not using a single Glacial Golem though, respect for that. Now, game 29, this was an interesting one. I went against a Balance Wizard. Yes indeed, this is one of those nightmare matchups that Ice is just fundamentally not supposed to win at all, but you know what? Game 29 versus a Balance, I won with 415 HP. And the result there was I won with 3.1% of my health left, which was, I was winning by a lean margin there. And I gained 12 elo for it, so that wasn't too bad, but my god, this game was frustrating. I went into this fully expecting to get tossed around, since any, average Balance could beat a Reg Ice no matter how good they played. But this one, not so much. I can attribute my performance in this match to him giving me 3 Frostbites that he couldn't immediately weird head, and whether this was because he knew his school was so favored against mine and he got sloppy, or if he was actually just a bad player, it doesn't matter. He goes for a Spectral Blast, and he hits Storm because Wiz, and I immediately fire back with the first bite since he doesn't have the pips to weird head. And he goes for a Tower Shield, and then Gearhead's the last tick. It wasn't worth it at all, and it happened again later, and this was genuinely the reason why he lost. Do I need to mention how he was also packing Glacial Shields? Like, I really couldn't tell you why a Balance would pack those. I mean, the Storm matchup is safe, and then the Ice matchup is obviously one-sided, but it wasn't too bad comparatively, considering he was spamming Scales of Destiny anyway. And for those who didn't watch games 1 through 25, Scales is basically Balance's new Hydra. It costs an Ice Pip and a Life Pip to use on top of one normal Pip, and it'll echo one shield on the target for a 65% shield on the caster, which is just brutal for an Ice to deal with. And it honestly is what makes the matchup one-sided favoring the Balance, because so much of what Ice does involves shields, and when you can infinitely echo first and then triple hit, using Ice Bubbles to buff up the Ice portion of the hit, it is very hard to lose this matchup if you're a Balance. But back to the Frostbites. I'd like to mention that I did not crit a single one of these, and he was blocking a lot of my other crits, but those were mostly inconsequential. The Frostbites, on the other hand, I needed the extra damage from those if I wanted to win. And when I didn't crit all 3 of the hits that would usually be, a massive risk to use in the absolute perfect situation for him, I was sure I had lost. By the end of the match, I was very behind, and he sent a mock, which was what I thought was the last nail in the coffin, but he got the blade back, and he was out of pips, so I responded with a Weaver that I was fully expecting to do nothing, but ended up doing 3.1k, which put me right back into the game. I P-served it, and had a Snowman and a one-hit in hand, and all that he could do was try to kill me with a 2-pip judge through a shield, and shield himself after my Snowman, which also didn't crit, didn't kill him. When he towered, I thought it was just over, completely, and when I saw my one-hit do 180 damage when he had 226 HP left, my heart just sank. But then it said that I won, and I must have gotten some rounding error at the end of the wand hit, but I will absolutely take it, seeing as this guy didn't play great at all. He was better than some of the Balances in the last video, which, really made this match an uphill battle, but a win's a win, and I think I found the, skill threshold where I win or lose against Balance, so I'm really not looking forward to the next Balance game, but surprisingly and somehow, I am 5-0 against them so far in these 50 games, so we'll see if that decides to continue. Alright, time for game 30. In game 30, I went against a Fire and lost when the guy had 206 HP. It was a very close match. The result ended up going to Scarlet here by 1.8 percentage points, which was the first tilt victory of the video. Tilt Fire here, and I lost 18 elo for it. So yeah, doesn't matter how close I bring it, still losing that much. This game was just generally frustrating, and while Ice is meant to be good at removing blades, our main blade counter is Ice Wyvern, and this is a good case study in the counter the counters, or CTC for short, meta we find ourselves in. A Fire has free reign to use whatever blades they like in this matchup, because the second an Ice goes to counter them, they can now set up their Scion Gambit in one turn. And Fire Dragon does absolutely mass over 2 overtimes, but it is also a traps to overtimes counterspell, and Scarlet here did that and was able to set up her tree just for that, so I had to react accordingly. I fended off the Gambit, but a couple Ifrits later, and I was just pinned, and eventually I got this just miraculous Weaver off, but I was very behind at that point, and no amount of damage mitigation is going to save me from a Fire who plays Brain Dead, spamming Golems, Surges, and OTs to win. Somehow, despite all of her nonsense, I was able to get her within kill range, and then she used a Glacial Golem. So the cheese card we all know and hate saved her from a loss that quite frankly would have been extremely embarrassing. She did not play well, conventionally speaking, and all she really did was play He Don't Got It, and it worked. And it was still very embarrassing that I brought it down to a tilt margin despite experiencing the same problem as game 29, where I was not critting anything to save my life, and even one more crit would have served her the loss she so deserved from this game. Matches like this are extremely tilting because Reg Ice does not have a single cheese card in this matchup, while Fire, the hard counter school, does have one. And, at this point I was still debating running the Wastelander hat for storm accuracy, and if I didn't give up so many defensive stats, I would have done it by this point, considering, the first 5 games of this video were 2 balances and 3 fires, but oh well. The blocking pin saved me in game 29 anyway, so they've both got their pros and cons. Alright, game 31. This was another fun one. In this one, I went against a Myth and ended up losing when the guy had 425 HP. The result was Myth Hunter plus 3.8 percentage points of his health left, so that put him into the lean category. So he got a victory by it leaned in his favor, basically, and I lost 14 elo for it. So, fun. Anyway, the fact that this game was as close as it was, despite me deck failing horrifically for the first quarter of the game, was pretty embarrassing for this guy. It's a counter matchup, Myth plus 40 at the time, and he underperformed the average by so much, but it was still enough to barely eke out a win. And these are the games that inspire me to make these 25 games videos. It doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter how bad they are. If you are a reg ice in this meta, you are going to lose after playing far better than your opponent. I was outperforming the typical average of, Myth plus 40 by about, 36%, so that was pretty cool. And early on, I needed to take a Tamauchi to get an early lead, but I didn't pull any until very late in the match, as you'll see. Had I been able to take a double or even triple buff Tama early on when I needed to, the match would have likely gone to me by a likely margin. And also worth noting was my luck with my cold irons. I didn't see any of those until I was well over halfway through my cards, and we got to a point where I was actually in a position to win. He gave me a round of breathing room, and I was able to pull a second Spirit Shield to block out some of the damage that I was inevitably going to take from a drop bear. He still sent it though, did mass as expected, and then when I got him in a bad spot again, he shield spammed until he could kill me. Truly the textbook myth game of all time. In game 32, I went against yet another fire, and this one, it actually went pretty well. I was able to win with about 5,045 HP, which was a result of myself winning by, 37.6 percentage points of my health remaining, which was a safe victory for me, and I gained 15 elo from it, so that was a nice little pickup after these last couple games. And this was a pretty run-of-the-mill game, not much else to it other than the fact that I played pretty well, and big props to this guy for not using any glacial golems or set shields in general. I can honestly attribute my win margin to that, but otherwise, it was just a pretty good game for me. Kind of just, textbook, not much else to it, just played like I do, won pretty easily. He didn't use any cheese cards, so respect to him for that. Now for game 33, I went against another myth and lost when the dude had 3,570 HP. So the result was he won with 32.5% of his health left, so, he didn't underperform by as much as the other myth did, but it was still a safe victory for him, and I lost 14 elo for it. Now, I want Redbeard to watch that full match and tell me with a straight face what I could have done differently to win, or at least bring the margin down. This guy countered literally everything I did. Frostbite, he top decks to shift. Shield, he used 4 drop bears. Shield again, Path B Minotaur, because apparently carrying both max drop bears as well as these is a good idea. Open shot, try shield spam and just set up the Jin. Weakness, send the brutally overpowered Stone Colossus card. There's also a point in there where I went for a Path B Minotaur of my own to counter some of his shields and get some traps for it, but I got the 2% fizzle chance, so I couldn't counter 4 of his shields. And even if I had, let's be honest, he would have played CTC and taken the Sun Serpent, surged, and pressured Didoni, which would have done like 6 racks unbuffed. You can sort of understand how this one went. Nothing I could have done would have saved me in this matchup. Myth has tools to hard counter death and by proxy all weaknesses, and with drop bear being a thing, they now have a hard counter to ice identity. And it did still underperform what I believe to be the average by about 8 points though, so GG's I guess. Just a very unlucky game for me there. Oh, game 34. This game, I went against a Life Wizard, and of course, as y'all know, I have even less of a chance against Life Wizards than I do against Balance. So for this match, I lost when the guy had 10,588 HP. So the result was he won by 69.7 percentage points, a safe victory without a shadow of a doubt, and I lost 11 elo for it. So that's fun. But yeah, I actually didn't start recording until well into the match. I thought I had pressed start recording at the beginning, but maybe not. But the thing with this game was, and with Life Wizards in general, is that they love to spam heals. This guy in particular used, I think, 5 hunting worms over the course of the game, if my memory is correct, and there were maybe 3 goat monks, something like that. But anyway, as you can see, I have a lot of shields on me, and I concocted this half-baked plan to win this matchup where the other guy should win more than 90 games out of 100 against me, just, fundamentally. And I haven't seen it work yet to its fullest potential, but the general idea is get at least 12 shields on yourself, and then get Bubble, Sleet Storm at 10 pips, Shrike at 12, Frostbite if you need to, Lord of Winter, Kelvin. But the problem is, Life Wizards tend to have every single bubble, so it's very hard to actually win Bubble. I never had it for more than a turn in this match, but you got the general idea. Life Wizards thrive when you run a chip strategy, and PvE ices can get the better of them typically, but Reg Ice stands no chance. A double buff Frostbite into a double buff Lord into a double buff Kelvin Gambit should do at least 15,000 damage, especially if you're in Shrike, but we'll really have to see. And I was struggling with pulling my Lord of Winter this match. Didn't even see one until about 40 cards left, and by that point it was just barely too late. He'd managed to get deep into his yellow timer while I still had 5.5 minutes left on mine, mostly because I knew exactly what I was doing, and tried my best to keep myself healthy throughout the game. And I started packing Rebirth as my trap counter instead of Scales, and I've had yet to see it work, but in the event I get some of my shields Minotard, I can Rebirth the traps off and have an extra buff when I go into Shrike. That was my goal here. He never ended up using a Minotaur, but the idea is the same, and I used 2 unbuffed Rebirths just to sustain myself through the match. I've also got no outgoing, so they only heal for pace, but that was about 4,400 health that I was able to get back because he was playing so slow. In the end, I was able to get the Lord of Winter off, but he finally started playing aggressively after I'd gone into Shrike, so I ended up dying pretty easily. If I'd top-decked my Lord, it would have definitely been a different story. Or maybe not. If we're being real, he would have, Rebirth, Surge, Rebirthed if I hadn't been able to kill, but you get the idea. That combo is the only chance my strat has against his school, and I knew this going in and played fully for it. He, on the other hand, was very excited about beating me in a life plus 90 matchup and started drama with me afterward in the arena. He spewed toxicity, as is the custom with some of these extremely sweaty types, and he accused me of spamming Rebirth when he didn't even use one. And that is true. He didn't use any Rebirths, because he never got under a health threshold to where that would have been a good move, because my game plan was specifically built around not giving him a chance to use that brokenly overpowered spell with all of his outgoing at full volume. Anyway, my 2 totally raw Rebirths with no stats behind them totally set him off. Pot calling the kettle black, as it were, being a Life Wizard getting this enraged at a Reg Ice with a plan. Big shoutouts to Brandon and Anthony for backing me up in the arena. The guy was totally incensed, and y'all did a good job of winding him up even more, which we love to see. And I'll admit I got a little carried away, like when I started singing Not Like Us, since Life Wizard spamming hit and heals against the Reg Ice is quite the tell, but it was all in good fun. He started bringing up how his supposed Reg Ice, in quotes, is higher ranked than mine, and yeah, his Ice is 1700 rank, but when you look at the games I've had in this video, Golem spammers, myths who counter everything, exclusively people with 50 plus more rank than me sweating their balls off, that type of deal, your elo will naturally slip a bit. And when the only matches you get are Sergeant Reg Storms and Fires who you're already hard set for that don't incessantly spam Golem and cheap counter your counters, your elo will naturally rise a bit. Not to mention, I don't totally buy that he got all of his rank doing Reg Ice. It's a good chance he PvE'd a lot last season, and if he is who I think he was supporting PvE in a Discord chat with a couple other guys, while myself and some others tried to talk some sense into them. I genuinely think he and his ilk in that chat set back the anti-PvE effort by weeks, if not months, since Artie took their side in it. Anyway, I've been talking about this game for way too long, you get the gist. Exceedingly toxic man-child in a matchup favoring him in 95 games out of 100, gets incensed at the thought that a Reg Ice could cook up a more reliable game plan to beat him, when he would just heal spam harder than he already did with his worms and monks if I played quote-unquote normally. Let's move on to game 35. So for game 35, I went against a Death, and I won with 3,798 HP. The result was I won with 28.3% of my health left, which was a pretty good victory. It was a likely victory for me, fell into the likely category, and I gained 14 elo for it. Now, I don't actually have any notes in my Google Doc for this game, but I'm going to show you the game like I have been for all the others. But if there's no notes, I can only assume that this is just a run-of-the-mill game that y'all have seen a million times. It's like, y'all saw like a lot of, the games that I would have against Death Wizards in the first 25 games, where, I would just really counter all of their weakness spam, that type of deal. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's all I've really got for this one. I'm guessing it just wasn't too remarkable if I don't have any notes in my Google Doc. So, pretty neat, but just sort of run-of-the-mill. Y'all have all seen this game before in the first video that I made. The first 25 games, that is. Alright, game 36. I went against another Fire Wizard, and this one I lost when the guy had 506 HP remaining. So, the result, it went to Trent by 4.5% and a lean fire victory, and I lost 21 elo for it. So, oh, that was a giga drain. Anyway, so this was just, you know, a run-of-the-mill OT spam and fire gut set shield spam and spammer. And I decided to switch to the Wastelander hat after this. I was sick and tired of losing to fires who just do this and play he don't got it when I have plenty of life for storm pips. And it's evident now that I was able to reasonably beat OT fires in the first 25 games, since some fires would try to go for Path A Sun Serpent over OT spam, and I was able to leverage that to my advantage, being able to use my shields and all against Sun Serpent in particular. But now that it's banned, Fire is just sort of condemned to only being able to spam overtimes, and in Ice's case, Golems as well, which was the secondary deciding factor in this match. Though, of course, if he didn't use a 2-pip spell to counter my 5-pip hit, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. If I'm losing 21 elo in a system where it's already excruciatingly hard to gain that back, I need to adapt to who's in queue, and right now there are a hell of a lot of OT fires beating me by tiny margins, as these first 11 games have shown. Fire is a better school than Ice, that much is very obvious, and they are a harder counter than ever before with the extremely overpowered King Artorias, nuking 7 shields and giving them passive regen, as well as being able to spam overtimes and putting in massive amounts of damage every round. Even with Brace, Ice just can't keep up, and I've determined that post-update, if you're running the Stalker hat setup, this matchup has moved from Fire plus 15 to Fire plus 40, putting it in the safe column for the Fire, just because of how they started to play since the Sun Serpent ban. Packing the counters should give me a fighting chance, but all it's going to do is make the Death and Myth matchups a lot harder, which I'm not looking forward to, considering Myth already stomps Ice in every aspect, and, I mean, think about Game 33 with that, and we're already only barely favored against Death, so that margin has fortunately expanded since the Drain nerf, but it was still very, very close at the time I played Game 36. In Game 37, I went against yet another Fire, and just a quick spoiler alert there, I went against 9 Fires in these 25 games, so for this one in particular, I won with 7,532 HP, which was a victory by, 53.8%, which was very safe for me, and I gained 16 elo for it. And now, this had its own video, and I would recommend watching that, but this guy was super sad. Well, not intentionally at least, but he was using a lot of set shields, golems, and lightning bats for my frostbites. And this was the game where I made the switch to the Wastelander hat to run storm accuracy, and it really helped me out here, but I guess let's go ahead and see if that helped me in the long run, and see if it actually helped influence some of these matchups as time went on against other Fire Wizards. In Game 38, I went against a Death Wizard, and I ended up winning with 4,052 HP, which was a pretty solid win for me. The result ended up being I won by 28.9 percentage points, putting me just under the safe margin and into the likely column, and I gained 7 elo for it. Fun. So, this guy could have really giga drained my rank if my luck in the beginning of the match had been any worse, like at all, and I was losing bubble, which Ice desperately needs in this matchup, and he was getting a lot of good hits off that closed our natural HP gap. But once I got bubble, the match went much smoother for me, and I was able to take the dub pretty easily. And at the end here, I wasn't honestly expecting this Weaver at the end to kill. I needed to do about 3.3k, and I only had 2 buffs, so I was not expecting it to do 3.5, and I did plan ahead for it rather, but, still, nice to see Ice doing damage for once, even though it's Death Resist, and Ice just does not do damage, even with buffs into Death Resist, but it was nice and refreshing to see this do as much as it did with double buffs, so that was very nice and fun to watch. In Game 39, I went against yet another Fire, and this one I lost when the guy had 2,676 HP. The results went to him by 23.8 percentage points, a likely victory for Orion, and I lost 20 elo for it, so that's cool. But the common theme of fire wizards spamming set shields in a matchup that they're supposed to win by a safe margin is clearly continuing. I really think they've got to figure out some way for the Fire v Storm matchup to become less of a nightmare, because some of the fire decks I've seen involve max set shields and a few golems in there too, because why not, and Ice is getting caught in the crossfire. There's also something to be said about how this guy played He Don't Got It and had it work out for him. There was also a turn in there somewhere where I needed to pull a weakness since he had 2 buffs, but when I eviscerated my hand to try and pull one, I drew a Frost Giant, 2 Spirit Shields, and a Wyvern. And I knew that if I were to take the Wyvern, he'd use the trap against me immediately and set up a Scion in one round, which is exactly what he did, but I had no choice if I wanted to try and avoid a bigger damage hit from a King Art. From that one deck fail, the match was all downhill. I was fortunate enough to pull a Zilla the turn after so I could get rid of at least 2 of those overtimes. One, of course, being the weak one that does no damage, but, you know. Since I didn't pull a 0-pip weakness the turn before, I did not have the pips to continue countering his overtime spam, which he then followed up with an Ifrit, and everyone knows if a fire hits you with an Ifrit with 2 overtimes on, that's game over, and this game was no different. There was a slight chance I could have pulled it back with a couple good, Weavers, Tamas, and Bites, but I never regained bubble control and deck failed all my 2-pip bubbles, and after 3 set shields, there was just nothing to be done. I lost 20 elo to this Smurf, so that was fun too. Can't wait to take 5 games to make all of that back. Alright, game 40. I went against a myth, and not just any myth, I went against my buddy Cass. So, yeah. Lost when the guy had 5396 HP. The result was he won by 48.9 percentage points. A safe victory for the myth, and I lost 5 elo for it. So, it wasn't too big of a loss, but still. But this game was against my buddy Cass, widely known as one of the best PvPers right now, and if that wasn't enough, he was on a school that is supposed to beat mine in 70 games out of 100. So, we were DMing on Discord the whole match, neither of us were taking it seriously, and I knew I was just totally boned, so I was down to give him the dub. And he sent this game to Ratbeard in an effort to get him to maybe, potentially, hypothetically, theoretically, anecdotally think about buffing Ice, but I'm not sure that's going to go anywhere. And I've linked the game down in the description. I put our DMs as the match went on in the video, and I'd honestly recommend watching it. It was pretty funny. In game 41, I went against another Death Wizard, and I won with 4,293 HP, with the results being I won by 30.7 percentage points, so I just barely got into the safe category with that win, and I gained 19 elo for it. So that was pretty good, and well, this game I am officially 10-0 against Death Wizards in this series, assuming I didn't miscount, but I know that I got a lot of them in the first video, so, that's just what we're going with. But, that in mind, this is all stuff that you've seen before. I basically just played to counter what he was doing super hard, and I was able to do that, which led to a pretty good win. I barely got it over into the safe category, but a dub is a dub, and I was very, very happy that I was able to get 19 elo back for this, so that was very, very fun. I was able to get almost 20 elo back. I think this was my biggest elo pickup of the whole video, by quite a margin, I want to say, so W elo system, bro, W elo system. In game 42, I went against another Storm, and I won with 11,403 HP remaining. And the result was I won with 81.5% of my health, which was a very safe victory, and I gained 13 elo for it. And this is another game where I just don't have any notes in my Google Doc. But for me to have won by that much, it's like, some of these Storms, it's like they're doing all they can, but it's like Storm is Ice's best matchup still, definitely is, and Ice is just, it's like the fact that Storms have been queuing more since game 37 when the change happened. It's like, I do like that Storm has been queuing more because it's given me more opportunities to actually win games, so that's fun. But yeah, for me to have won by this much, it's like, that's kind of crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna see if I can fit the whole match in here. So how about that? Alright, game 43. In this one I went against a Fire and won with 2,406 HP, So the result was I won by 17.2 percentage points, a likely victory, and I gained 8 elo for it. Only 8. So how about that? Anyway, this is one of the most agonizing games to play in this entire video. If you guys remember Seth, you know, the dude who was packing set shields, lightning bats, and enfeebles from game 37, well, this guy did the exact same thing, except instead of me beating the brakes off of him and winning by a 50-point margin, I deck failed my abominable weavers for the entire game. I saw 2 in my starting hand like you saw, and then never saw one again. This dude was spamming overtimes, and I was thankfully pulling the counters when I needed them, and, you know, of course the blades they would give me would get enfeebled, so there was nothing I could use those blades with, but it wasn't too bad there. Towards the end, he did really go all in on the overtimes, using 2 back-to-back fire dragons when I countered the first one, but if I'd been able to pull even 1 abominable weaver throughout that whole time, I could have dropped 3 racks on his forehead and closed out the match, but nope. I had to Tama it out, which thankfully worked, but there was seriously no enjoyment to be found in this game. If I had had a weaver, that is a good offense-defense move that I could have taken, and it would have really allowed me to really pull ahead and win this match by a much larger margin, but since I had to take Tamaujis over and over, it's like I couldn't hit and shield myself on the same turn, so this was just an exhausting game, I'll say that much. Game 44, okay. And this one I went against the Storm, and I won by 259 HP, which resulted in me winning by 1.8 percentage points, a tilt victory for myself, and I gained 12 elo, so, you know, gain of elo is always good. But, dude, alright, like, I'll be totally real, I always joke about people like the guys from games 37 and 43 setting, because their decks are just on demonics for the ice tool for no reason, but this guy said, there is no discernible reason why you should be packing minus 80 set shields on top of glacial shields for the worst school in the game while using 4 berry surprises. Like, what are we doing? It's especially crazy because it didn't even work. Counter matchup be damned, you should never be packing snow shields, because I am the only person you'll ever see queue this school. Like, if you walk in with the intent to play like the guys from games 37 and 43 while having the ability to heal spam and use ice-specific sets, that's insane. Had they been glacials, I'd have laughed it off and said something like, oh look, another set shield spammer. He uses them for mirrors, but ice just gets caught in the crossfire. No, never, nope, not a zero zilch. Like, I get it, it's late night queues, but to be sniping an ice at low rank is just beyond me, dude. That is a different type of demonic. I will be straight with y'all. Like, I did win because I crit blocked his Triton, but for it to have even come down to that, when he used 3 snow shields on top of a glacial while using 4 berries, you've got to be the worst player I've seen in this series so far, and game 29 was a thing that happened just for reference. My Weaver also killed by literally nothing, and if it had killed, you know this guy was ready to just send a wand hit or a second lightning bats or whatever just to tie it up, and oh my god. These are crazy times we are living in if people are trying to set for me and Q snipe me at like when I'm barely even veteran. This is an insane thing to experience in Wiz, bro, I swear. Game 45 versus Fire, and I lost to the guy who had 518 HP, so I think that is the 3rd game of the video that has been decided by less than 5% of the other person's health. The result was he won by 4.6% this time, which leaned in his favor, and I lost 18 elo for that. So, yep, another loser showing us why this matchup is safe for Fire Wizards with a total of 4 set shields this time. I don't know what it is with me and everyone packing set shields for me in this video, but it's getting kind of old. Let's tone it down. But anyway, y'all have all seen this game before. It's happened in this video multiple times. He spams OTs, I counter for 5 pips, he counters the counter for 2 pips, spams set shields, and still almost loses because he needs multiple crutches to beat the worst school in the entire game. In the entire game's history, mind you. So, oh my god, dude. Man, let's just go to game 46. Okay, game 46 versus Storm, and I lost when the guy had 4,818 HP. The result was he won by 28.9 percentage points, a likely Storm victory teetering on the edge of safe, and I lost 14 elo for it. So, dear viewer, you might be asking yourself, how did I go from winning by 80 points in game 42 against the Storm to losing by 30 points in game 46 against the exact same school? Well, dear viewer, let's dive into that. Weird set shield spamming aside, let me just show you the entire match sped up. And I want you to look. Do you see even one Weaver appear in my hand? No, you freaking don't. Because in 90 goddamn cards, I didn't even see one. There are a minimum of 10 openings in there where I could have taken a Weaver and had it do absolutely mass, but no, the game never even gave it to me. Brilliant chance need to come back. Brilliant chance need to come back. Or at least let us pack our hits inside, you goddamn rat bastard. And no hard feelings to Ian either. You know, we talked after the match, and he acknowledged my RNG was just generationally bad there. I mean, Lord of Winter could have been a good play if I'd ever gotten the pips for it, but I never could because I had to Triton heals or break the million set shields he used. Had I known I was never going to see my main hit, I would not have discarded my surges and I'd have played for that a lot more. If I'd been able to pull even one Weaver the entire game, it would have been an absolute walk, and I would have picked up so much elo you have no idea. This game, as well as the next one for a time, and game 43 on top of this, I didn't even write this down in my Google Doc, but game 43 I never saw a Weaver either. It's like this genuinely had me wondering if I had used the wrong deck, because I packed 5 Weavers and didn't even see one, not even on the last round. And I got to 22 cards remaining. That's, oh my god, that's clinically insane. Y'all are going to be very lucky if you see even one more high speed video after today in its current state, because wow, this school sucks, and Peeve sucks balls too. Okay, game 47 versus another Storm, and this one I lost when the guy had 138 HP. The result was he won by 1.4 percentage points, a tilt Storm victory, and I lost 13 elo for it, so a total of 27 across these two games. You guys remember game 46? The one you just saw? Yeah, well, it happened again. A second goddamn time. Again, a million openings to send a Weaver and do like 4 racks to his head. And mind you, both of these guys were Storms, so that means I would have been chunking them for 40% of their health with a single double buff day bomb, and I just never pulled it. And I knew from game 42 that a double buff day bomb would have done like 4.6k, which is just absolutely insane. And I just never had it. And right at the end of the game, I did finally pull a Weaver. It was the first Weaver I had seen in 160 total cards between these two games. And I screenshotted it because of that, which ended my recording, but I realized that and got it back up pretty quick. He was in strike by this point and spamming parries to do what I thought was set up a gen, because that would have been a generational game plan that would have actually gotten him a clean win, despite my deck RNG with never pulling Weavers, but he just ended up spamming Storm Owls. So, this guy played horribly. I just want to get that out there because just like the previous game, I had so many open Weaver opportunities, but just didn't have it because Ratbeard increased the amount of RNG in this game tenfold back in 2020. Anyway, at the end of the match, I got the Weaver and got the pips to send it right as he got out of strike, which, by the way, he took 30% lash because of the berries, so I was sure I could kill him even though he was heal spamming like a Jade Life with a gun to their head. I'd seen a double buff Weaver do 4.6k before, game 42, so I knew that I could kill him right here with this white whale of a Weaver that I had finally gotten in my hand for the first time in my life. I thought I'd won until the dude crit blocked, and that was how the game ended. I still had a double buff wand hit, which did close to 900 damage, but because of all of his heal spamming, he was just barely out of range and pulled the kill shot. That was a very demotivating 2 games just now, and it's games like these that make me recommend that everyone looking to get into PvP in this game stays far, far, far away from it, because if I wasn't making PvP content on this game, I would have quit months ago. I'm losing matchups that I should be winning by large margins, just because I cannot pull what I need, and I am looking forward to game 50 being over because wow, this is unbearable. So we get to game 48, where I went against another Storm, and I won with 8,147 HP, a margin of 58.2 percentage points, a safe margin, and I gained only 5 elo for it, so I was okay with it though. It was just a chill little match. I got a good Scion playoff at the end, and Really had to go all in on defense to get it, but it worked out pretty well. Nothing too special here. Didn't really gain too much. Just a nice match to de-stress with after just the absolute eldritch horrors that were games 46 and 47. You can probably just tell by my voice. I like reliving these games just to put these in the video is like, when I read these Google Docs, I'm like, why do I still play this game? And then I remember it's like I don't want to leave y'all hanging. So yeah, but game 48, you know, it went all right, I guess. In game 49, I went against a balance and lost when the guy had only 451 HP. So the result was he won by 3.7 percentage points, lean victory, and I lost 6 elo for it. And well, team, it happened. My 5-win streak against the school that should never lose to mine has finally ended. And there was never any doubt in my mind that this would eventually happen, but I'm honestly surprised that it took this long. And once I saw I'd queued a martial balance, I knew it was over. Like, this dude I knew from jump was super sweaty, and there was no winning this at all. I watched this guy dark packed off his own shield because it was something he could do with no consequence. I watched him stop fighting Bubble because mine literally helped to scale spam. I watched him pass so many times, sometimes multiple turns in a row, because he could do that without me getting any good hits in on him. This matchup seriously needs to be looked at, because my god is it frustrating when every move you make, including the ones that no other school can punish, gets punished. You Bubble, he uses that against you with scales. Aura, he pops it for 2 pips and does a grand. Golem, he sends the scales straight through your chromatic shields that are 20% weaker because of his school and does a grand. Get the pips to combo, he burns and does a grand. Overtime, he does half a grand and puts the other half back onto you. Weakness, he packs off both your weakness and one of his own shields and gives himself 2 blades because he can. Shield, this is the 3rd time I'm mentioning Scales of Destiny. There is just nothing you can do in this matchup as an Ice, and even when Ice is better than them at tanking, they just, click brace and outdo us even there. And once Supernova TCs are banned, I'm not sure if Balances will be running them in main deck, but if not, then and only then will the matchup move out of the one-sided category and down into the safe column. We still won't win, but at least a good Ice might be able to beat an average Balance. Anyway, toward the end, he just started messing around, which at least allowed me to run down the margin, but there was no realistic way I was winning that, even if he passed 5 turns in a row. We both kind of understood. Angel was chill about it, and so was I, because what is there to even get mad at with this? Like, both of us knew how the match was going to go before the countdown clock even reached 10 seconds left. It was just pitiful to see, really. And so we have reached game 50. It was against the Storm, and I won with 7,104 HP. The result was I won by 50.7 percentage points, safe victory, and I got 10 elo for it. Hopefully, and if I can hold myself to this, I have played my last game of Ice PvP until we receive a meaningful buff. In this match, I basically just did what I've done with all the Storms so far and played defensively. It really ended up working out even with his Fire Elves, and my personal highlight was when I pulled Abominable Weaver from my deck. That was my favorite part of the match for sure. It's always nice when that happens, and my second favorite part of the match was when I hit a gnarly Lord of Winter into Frostfeather into Weaver combo. That did the bulk of the damage. Even though I only had 2 shields on, I made good use of them and managed my pips really well. It was just really a shame that I couldn't do that too often in the series, but with everyone packing extremely punitive shield counters, I will take what I can get when I can get it. So just as some closing thoughts for this, I have to say this video went so much worse than the first one. And over the course of these 25 games, I went 13 and 12. It's a miracle how I managed to go positive on the worst school in the game's entire history, but I did it. Of course, we, could have seen, 15-10 at least, if for some goddamn reason my Weavers decided to just show up in games 43 and then 46 through 49, but it whiz what it whiz, I guess. But, yep, I went from 1674 rank at the beginning of this video down to 1658 rank at the end, with a net loss of 16 elo. I went positive, and it was like I'd gone very negative. Good elo system, you rat bastard. Out of the 12 losses, 5 were to Fires, 2 were to Storms, 3 were to Myths, 1 was to a Life, and 1 was to a Balance. The 2 Storm losses could have been avoided if my deck had decided to show me more than 1 Abominable Weaver and a grand total of 160 cards between the 2 of those games, but I don't really think that many of the others were salvageable, and out of the 5 Fire losses, 3 of them were under 5 percentage points, and decided entirely by set shields and glacial golems. Yay! I lost a total of 172 elo over the course of this video, and keep in mind this is a system where you lose considerably more than you gain, so it's no surprise the 12 losses equated to this. In 13 wins, I gained 156 elo, which really just goes to show how neat the system is. My wins included 4 against Death, 4 against Fire, 3 against Storm, and 2 against Balance. It's wild to think about how my ratio against Fire would be 7 to 2 instead of 4 to 5 this video if Glacial Golem didn't exist. Last time I said Ice had not been faring well in the metas as of late, and that just amplified in this video and this season, and Ice was one of 2 schools to suffer a card ban this season, being TC Frostbite, after a certain content creator's myth, who wasn't packing Shift for God knows what reason, managed to lose a matchup to a Reg Ice, which of course favored that certain guy by 40 points. And I really relied on Frostbite as a shield breaking move when I go against, you know, a Fire Wizard with a million set shields, but anyway, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because using Frostbite, even in main deck against shields, is just never a good move. 3 schools can straight up shift it back to you, and everyone else packs a 2-pip counter for it. It's always better to just wand or golem or whatever and hope they don't shield again. And if they do, then it's good pressure regardless, but still, you know, the counters are far better than the move itself. Not a lot has changed about Ice recently, except it is now the guaranteed worst school in PvP, and, you know, Storm managed to rise up the ranks, and we saw more of them queuing this video, but that meant Ice got left completely in the dirt, and there are multiple tiers between Ice down at F tier and Life and Fire a couple tiers up. That is how bad things are right now. Everyone else is competitive, but not us. Never us. And there's also quite a lot to be said about this whole, you know, counter the counters nonsense we've been experiencing. Like, moves like Enfeeble on Fire are what make that matchup so nightmarish, because even if you do Zilla off their overtimes, you are not keeping those blades. They can be catastrophic if you can get a hit with them, and Fire Wizards know this, so even though they pack 10 set shields to help them in a matchup they lose anyway, you better believe they're still going to do everything in their power to ensure they don't lose to Ice. And, you know, it's the same with Life and healing in general. It's like Ice struggles a lot with this, and having to spend 6 whole pips on a Triton is exhausting, but the 60 blades you get back are very good and can really threaten a good hit. The problem is, I was able to use these chromatic blades for my storm counter spells a grand total of once this video, and that was when I got that Clutch Weaver off against the dude who violently set for me and used 3 80% set shields. Every other time they got Enfeebled, so crazy world we live in. That basically allows people to heal or dot just at their leisure, because countering sets you back so many pips, and they can just nullify the counter for 2 pips and do it again while you're still recovering your own pips. That's why Ice vs Storm isn't a safe matchup. Enough berries and a Storm can genuinely outlast an Ice, and we almost saw it happen in the first 25 games. But if there is one thing that I am happy about in this meta, it's that PvE strats are mostly gone, and the counters were buffed, and that was very nice to see. Otherwise, though, that was kind of where things ended in terms of the good in this game, and in the first 25 games, I never switched up my deck or setup, whereas in this video, my deck setup in game 26 differed slightly from game 50, and my gear setup was totally different. And I did enjoy my higher tank ability early on, but I definitely needed the Storm accuracy and extra square socket from the Archival Amulet to stay competitive in some of these. So, yeah, there were multiple matches where that extra health saved me. And I can conclude that the setup I ended this video with is better than the setup I started this video with, and, you know, if for some goddamn reason you're in Ice looking to get into PvP, well, first of all, don't, but that's the setup to go for. And to echo what I said in the segment of the first video, you need to play astronomically better than everyone else to win in most cases, and there are some matchups where you can play astronomically better and still lose. There are cases like game 49 where the other dude could have his hand stroking his wang for multiple turns in a row and you'll still lose. There are cases like games 46 and 47 where your opponent can be spilling spaghetti all over their keyboard for the duration of the match and you'll still lose because the game just doesn't want you to win. And even when I'm losing like that, it's still good content because that is just genuinely the Ice experience, and that is what I wanted to highlight in these 50 games of Ice PvP. And it's something you get used to as an Ice player, but I personally have had more than enough of this godforsaken school over the last couple months, and do not intend on playing it until we receive a substantial buff. And before I end the video, let's talk about that substantial buff. It is so easy for KI to add that, and if any of you played, like, you know, right after Novus came out, Colossus would gambit up to 3 shields on you for 65 traps on the target, 65% ice traps, before hitting for about 550 base damage. Now, that was insanely cracked and shouldn't return, but if it gambited 3 shields, up to 3 shields rather, for a 35% trap per shield gambited, now we're cooking. And I and other ice players have suggested this idea to the devs, but they are hell-bent on keeping us at the bottom and squashing us whenever we rise up the ranks a little. Like I always say, ice gets nerfed every update, and even in an update as minuscule as this last one that saw drains get nerfed and was very targeted at death, we still lost frostbite TC, as you can see here. So crazy how that works. And if that's not proof the devs have some unfounded vitriol directed at ice, I don't know what is. Like, they have an opportunity to make us not the worst school by multiple tiers, but I honestly do not see them taking it, even when Be The Players laid out for them in a way that even their munches, even their biggest munches in the PvP channel in the official Discord, think is balanced. But that's going to wrap up Ice PvP on this channel, so thank you all for watching. I have been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I'll see y'all